Owen Shroyer, who was charged with a crime despite having neither entered the Capitol building nor was he accused of committing violence or destruction on Capitol grounds. But
what did he do?
What did he do? That's the thing. Did you step on the grass? Did you squish blades of grass?
I bet
did you violate the perimeter?
Yeah, he breached the fence line.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out in a minute. But prosecutors charged him because he had previously signed a deferred prosecution agreement after he interrupted a congressional hearing in 2019. Can't do that.
Oh.
You can't do that. And once you interfere with the gods, you deserve any punishment.
I'm interested to see what they actually did for that as well.
So he interrupted a congressional hearing in 2019 and had agreed as part of that case not to utter, quote, loud, threatening,
I don't know,
or abusive language, or to engage in any disorderly or disruptive conduct at any place upon the United States Capitol grounds, unquote.
Oh.
So Owen Shroyer joins us now. Owen, welcome to The Blaze. Thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, glad to be here, and I'm glad that you bring up that prior case because there's actually a lot of misunderstandings about that.
Yeah.
The hearing that I disrupted was the Trump impeachment hoax, and so I proudly disrupted that and called it out for what it was.
Okay.
And most times in instances like this, David Hogg has done it, others have done it, Laura Loomer has done it. Most instances, in fact, every instance that me and my lawyers could find, they never get charged. They never face jail time. They get detained for a moment and escorted out of the building and then told to go on their merry way.
Yeah.
This happens all the time. Code Pink, climate change protesters.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a regular occurrence. But for some reason, they decided to charge and detain me. I believe that order came directly from the top of the Democrat Party. In fact, the police were about to release me that day, and then somebody came on their speaker and said, no, you're going to charge him and arrest him. So the political persecution really began then.
Incredible.
But I'm actually curious because you read that quote from my deferred prosecution. Where did you actually get that quote?
Chris, where'd that quote come from?
No, I printed that story up. Let's see here. Hang on a second. I'll tell you. NBC News is our source for that.
So that's amazing. So let me tell you, they leave something very key out. And I noticed this. They always want to leave this out. There's actually, that sentence is not finished where that quotation ends. The sentence actually finishes with intent to disrupt Congress. That's the actual quote from the legal document.
So the move, right? I got you. Not the just
intent. So for people to argue, and this is what the media loves to argue, was that I broke my deferred prosecution. I had no intent to disrupt Congress that day. How could you even prove that I did?
Yeah, you can't. You can't prove intent.
And if anything, we are the ones that wanted the investigation to go down. The whole purpose of that day
was for the investigation.
Right.
For the investigation to go down before the certification. So we were there to support that. Why would I want to disrupt that? And by the way, by the time I got anywhere near the Capitol building, the hearing or the investigation or the certification had already been stopped. The whole thing had already been stopped. So there would have been no way for me to even possibly disrupt that.
Right.
So the media loves to leave that part out. But, there's an overarching question. That was a prior case dealing with an entirely different incident. Why is the FBI getting involved and indicting me over something that they have nothing to do with? Why would 21 of the 31 pages in their indictment have something to do not even involving January 6th? If I did violate my deferred prosecution agreement, which I didn't, we were prepared to argue in front of the court that I didn't, but that was for that judge to decide. That was an ongoing case. So this isn't for the FBI to decide whether I broke that deferred agreement or not. And for them to make that decision and decide to charge me was completely unheard of.
I mean, the more you dig into this.
So many cases that we hear from the day democracy almost died are unheard of.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the deal.
It's a travesty. It's an absolute American travesty.
So where were you breached the fence line? after Trump's speech? You went over there, or did it begin at Trump's speech in D.C.?
So my crew arrived at the Capitol probably about an hour or so, just over an hour after it was actually breached. That's the Capitol, not the ground. And the evidence in their sentencing memo, the evidence that they show that I breached the Capitol grounds, I'm not even kidding you. It's actually quite comical. There's a sign on the ground. And by the way, they got this evidence from me.
I was going to say I wanted to hear about the footage. That if your crew was there, you've got to have hours of footage from this, correct?
Not only the crew that we had that's shooting the footage for the media. My bodyguards wear a body cam. So this was actually footage from my bodyguard's body cam, and the evidence that they got and used against me was from that. It's a sign on the ground. I don't even know what the sign says. You can't even really read it. It's a crumpled up sign on the ground. Can you imagine what a paper sign looks like after thousands of people smashed over it with muddy shoes? That was their evidence that I crossed over ground.
Oh my gosh.
I can imagine you disregarding it right now, I'll tell you that.
And then you never went inside. So after the fact, did you think this was resolved, you're done, and then they got a hold of you somehow? How did they find you?
I didn't think anything of it. I didn't believe that I had broken any laws that day. I didn't believe, and still would argue, that I did not break my deferred prosecution. Of course, we never got the chance to argue that in court. So no, I never thought anything of it that day, quite frankly. Now, what had happened was that entire case was supposed to be over and done with. Mm-hmm. But because of COVID, we could not get into a courtroom, and we could not get the case closed. I had done my community service. I had completed my probation, everything, but we just could not get the case closed years later because COVID had shut the courts down and everything was backed up. So my lawyer then starts reaching out to the federal government again in 2021, or I guess the court system at that time. And he's saying, hey, we are trying to get this case closed. We're trying to get in front of a judge. We've been trying to do this since 2020.
We can't do that. Sorry, we've got this other case going on now. So.
And then and then they kind of hit us with now we're being told we can't close this case because there's other investigations into you. And so that's when we kind of got a clue that something was coming. But, you left out also an important detail. And you know what my real egregious crime that day was, though? Do you know what my truly egregious crime was from that day?
I do not.
Other than being an American and distraught with the election process? No.
Well, I dared to chant USA.
Oh, you bastard! Yeah. You bastard!
I know. I wouldn't even bolder, actually, if you can believe it. I chanted 1776.
No. Oh man. So the only crime you didn't commit that day was wearing a tri-cornered hat.
Yeah. You're lucky you're not conducting this interview from prison, my friend.
Do you know where I can get one?
No, I don't.